Well, good evening, everybody out there, internet land. I am Porch.
My name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative, and welcome to another session of Chattin on the Porch. A fun little live stream that we do in the evenings where we get together and we sometimes talk about the news. We always give our views, and otherwise we try to have a good time doing it, making through this crazy thing that we call life. I am your host. I am Brian Trippett. And I am on Twitter, I am on YouTube, and I am on Rumble. We're all over the place. We are Mr. Worldwide. Well, at least as worldwide as I can get anyway. But you get the idea. We're glad to have you guys here tonight for a very special session of Chatting on the Porch. Have a wonderful guest lined up for you. I have been dying to talk to this young lady for a while, ever since I came across her work, and this is going to be a load of fun for me. Hopefully it's going to be a load of fun for you too, as we get together and we try and figure out what this person is all about and their work. And like I say, this is going to be a really good evening on a subject that doesn't get nearly the attention that it should. And I'd kind of like to get under the surface with it. So hopefully that's enough of a tease to make you reach out to your friends and say, hey, I don't know where Brian's going with this one tonight, but this could get real interesting. So get in here and have some fun with me. Again, my name is Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. I am sometimes known as the beau in the chapeau. On occasion, I'm called the common man with common sense. But in this moment, as always, I am your host. Again, we're on Rumble, we are on Twitter, and we are on that quaint little alternative social media platform known as YouTube. So please, do me some favors as always. If you're not subscribed to this channel, please do so. Subscribe to me on Rumble. Subscribe to me on YouTube. And you YouTubers out there, y'all been very, very vigilant. Thank you so much for keeping an eye on your subscription, because for some strange reason, I tend to get poached every now and then through no fault of my own, I think. But, you know, I do have a little bit of a conspiracy mind about me. Anyway, leave a comment in chat, hit the thumbs up, do all those things that you guys do to make this channel a going little concern. It would be greatly appreciated. And oh my goodness, let us see who is in the house. We will start on the YouTube side. Motard is here. Motard, fist bump for you. Gypsy says, late night on the front porch. I am chilling. Well, so long as you be chilling like a villain, you be drinking, that's perfectly all right with me. And with that, madam, mwah. She also says, exceptionally warm here in southern Michigan. Geoengineering, never seen a blue sky all summer. Huh, interesting. Our crazy Canadian Adam is here. How you doing, sir? And fist bump to you. Let's see, who else is in the house tonight? Duke Willis is here. The Duke has shown up. I'm on the first 3 days of vacation. I'm ready. Well, sir, we're glad you're ready. You better be, because this is going to be a really good interview, or at least I like to think so anyway. Let's see who else is in the house. Lana, you lovely thing, you. Mwah! Good looking thing. Let's see. Robert is here. Fist bump for you, sir. Is playback choppy for anyone else? I don't know. It's been raining around here today. Maybe that's interfering with the internet, so we'll see. Lucky Tiger is here. Watching from Phoenix City, Alabama. And I follow homeless pictures from Tara on Twitter. Always thankful to not be homeless. Well, Lucky Tiger, we are glad to have you here. So, glad to have you here indeed. Let's see. Who else is in the house so far? I think that covers everybody on the YouTube side. Let me get over to Rumble and see what goes on here. WWG1 is in the house. Dropped a couple of memes. WWG1, I love your memes, but I'm going to hold them up for another occasion. So, we will hold all that off for the time being. Oh, come on. My connection is unstable. If you're on, I'm not on Wi-Fi. Thank you very much. Do not do this to me tonight. I would really appreciate it. All right, hang on a second, folks. All right. Sorry about that. I am fighting a head cold, so you guys have my apologies in advance. I told my guest backstage, if ever so often I pop off and... No, I am not on dial-up, you dirty, no-good rat. Terrible, terrible, I say. Hang on a minute. Don't even go anywhere. I'm going to step out for 1 second and see if I can't make this thing work. So Tara, hang on a second. Don't go anywhere. I will be right back. So everybody hang loose for a second. I will be back momentarily. All right, now let's try it. Tell me if that's working better. Hopefully it is. It should be anyway. Let's see. I did not, madam, I will have you know, I did not watch any porn on my computer. Thank you very much. But there were some pictures of you. Never mind. Anyway, God, I'm awful. All right. I think we're okay now. Sorry about that, everybody. Let me make a couple of real quick adjustments here. All right. I think we're getting back to normal here. How dare you, madam? I was looking at porn and I got a virus. Oh, jeez. My guest will now understand why I'm dealing with what I'm dealing with. It's just terrible, terrible, I say. All right. Bless her heart, I've kept her backstage way longer than I should have. So let's get down to business, shall we? The introductions. If we were playing a game of Jeopardy and you heard me say the answer, Ansel Adams, Annie Leibovitz, Robert Frank, and Ann Geddes, your question would be, what are famous photographers? Well, she may not be as famous yet as the ones I've just listed, but social media has its own up-and-coming star in terms of somebody that knows how to really take a fabulous picture and capture some amazing images through the lens. She is a resident of Portland, Oregon, and the state of Oregon all her life. She is a wife, a mother, and a documentarian, and doing it an old-fashioned way. In an era of high-speed internet and fiber net and everything else kind of net that we've got, this young lady is doing it the old-fashioned way, shoe leather and connections, walking the streets, meeting people, talking, and the subject of her photographic work is a group of people that normally are overlooked. And I first came across her via Brentley and Daniel De La Fay, the proprietors of the Dangerous Rotary podcast. And I was like, I have got to get this woman on the channel because we've got to talk. I got 1,000,001 questions I want to ask. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome maybe one of the best photographers on the whole of social media, and if nothing else, one of the coolest ladies you are ever going to find, Miss Tara-Faul. Tara, welcome to the Electronic Front Porch.
Hey, I almost fell asleep waiting for this, but
okay, I'm sorry. As my audience will freely admit to on my part, I'm operating using cheap surplus Ukrainian equipment that is operated together in part by tin can and string. So every so often, you get this sort of thing happen. Unfortunately, it happened tonight. How are you, dear?
Well, I'm good. I'm battling the drizzle season blues in Portland, which unfortunately are just starting. So I have until like June to wait that out. But yeah, because if I do a lot of stuff outdoors and I'm used to getting some exercise, and now it's kind of miserable. But other than that, is the fact that I live in Portland, it's great.
Okay, it's funny because Portland, Seattle, whenever people think of cities on the West Coast, they usually go down to California. They go San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco. And it's not that Portland and Seattle are ignored, but they're just not the first thing that come to some people's minds when they think of major metropolises on the West Coast. And, you know, or I have a friend of mine, she lives on the eastern side of Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been trying to get me to come out there for years because she's like, Brian, you would absolutely love it. It's forests, it's trees, it's mountains, it's absolutely beautiful.
It's
And I'm like,
everything.
yeah, I will. I keep promising her I will get out there one of these days.
It is really
So,
pretty.
I have no doubt about that. I've seen pictures and I've seen some of the pictures that you've taken, and yes, it is an absolutely amazing, amazing place. So, for the benefit of my audience who may not be familiar with you or familiar with your work, as we are wont to do with folks who come on the Electronic Front Porch, tell us about you. Where'd you grow up? Where are you living now? All those wonderful little things that people don't know and they're just waiting to find out first.
Well, what I have, I guess my bio begins that I grew up in the meth hills of the Oregon coast. So,
Okay.
like where there's all the like weird people who live in trailers. And I grew up on a logging road with a bunch of rednecks and a few perverts because I guess people will go out there to like flee the law, or if they were a sex offender, nobody wanted to live in whatever. I digress. So I grew up in the
Go
middle
ahead.
of nowhere
Okay.
with a creek, which my dad would say crick,
Okay.
and running around like a little tomboy with my BB gun and no real friends because nobody lived there. And then I got a car, so I was able to go to town, which was Lincoln City. So that's a small town. It's a tourist town on the Oregon coast that,
Okay.
people visit. The people who visit there have money, but the people who live there don't really. So they cook meth and use it and whatever. Anyway, I got out when I was 19 because I married a respectable man. And
Okay.
after being a barista and a construction worker and landscaper, and I made pizza and did a little drug dealing. And now I'm a mom of 4 and I live in Portland. And we're kind of in the inner city. So where all the good stuff happens, like riots and drive-by shootings and 3-legged coyotes that run through the streets. The usual.
You were looking for a little touch of home, it sounds like, when you lighted upon the locale where you currently find yourself.
Yeah, you have some wild animals and some criminals, but also you can walk to get coffee.
Sounds like a touch of heaven, really. It really
It is.
does.
It's nice. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, I was funny because we were talking backstage, and she said, "Yeah, I grew up in redneck." I was like, "Now wait a minute, you live in Oregon. How redneck could you be?" And then she described
Oh,
how her. Go ahead. Go ahead.
you have no idea. I mean, people are like married to their trucks, or
Oh
they
yeah.
take roadkill home for dinner. I mean,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
when I got married and I spent some time out in Virginia because my husband is a Virginian, but he's like the Northern Virginian type. So like
Okay.
suburban. And I didn't
Okay.
understand why there was so much roadkill left on the side of the road in Northern Virginia. Because I'm like, why aren't you taking it home and eating it? Like once you've hit it, it's fresh. You just pack it up and you throw it in the truck. Like what the heck? And he was
Okay.
like, who are you? Like,
Okay. So all right. Now we're down a rabbit hole, and I don't care. This is gonna be fun. All right. So how did you and your husband meet? Because this sounds like because let me set this up, and you tell me if I'm wrong. All right. You grew up, log road hillbilly, if I may use
mhm,
that term. He sounds like he grew up Northern Virginia, uh, suburban around DC neighborhood type, or
that's
in
right.
that adjacent. So it's sounding like there's quite a bit of cultural difference here. Okay. So how the heck did you
Yes.
two meet?
We met on the internet,
Okay.
but it was in 2004 when people
Okay.
didn't really meet on the internet. And then if you said that you did, people were like, oh.
Yeah,
Well,
they curl their nose, yeah. Mhm.
but it was by accident because we met because we had the same favorite band. And we were on some
Okay.
like chat boards. And so he was in it. Well, at the time I was 18 and he was 30. And I had a boyfriend, but he went out
Okay.
of town and ignored me. So I was bored and I was on these chat boards. And I met my husband and thought he was really cute. And he came out to meet me in Portland. And then we got married 6 months later.
Okay. All right. So the favorite band between the two of you is who exactly?
That was U2.
Great choice.
Yep.
Great choice.
And he took me to my first show.
Really?
Yeah. And then I
Oh,
danced
that's
with
cool.
Bono.
Get out of here. Now, how'd that happen?
He would like pull someone on stage for a dance during, it used to be With or Without You, but it ended up being Mysterious Ways. And we had waited outside all day in the rain to get to the front. And he pointed at me and had me pulled on the stage. And then we danced.
Cool. So what was the first moment that your soon-to-be future husband realized, oh, this is like no other girl I've ever dated before? I mean, was there one like,
Yeah, I actually do have a good story.
okay, all right, let's hear it because I'm dying to hear this one.
This is the classic story. We were engaged at the time, but I had moved out to Virginia so we could be together until we got married. But I lived somewhere else because I'm a respectable person. So, but I hung out at his townhouse all day by myself because he was at work, right? And his cat was giving me allergies. And this woman that I worked with, who was this crazy cat lady at Starbucks, told me, well, girl, like I get my cats shaved once a year and they don't give me any allergies. So you just need to get that cat shaved, because she was indoor cat, And
Just now, as far as the fur on this cat, are we talking like close to the body, big fur ball? I mean, what are we talking here?
she was a short-haired cat, but she had like the worst dander problem on the planet. And everyone who had, like, I didn't even know I had cat allergies because I had tons of cats growing up. I lived in the forest, like I was breeding them like a psycho. But they were all indoor, outdoor, and this cat has something wrong with her.
Okay.
Just toxic cat. So Beth, the crazy cat lady, tells me, get the cat shaved. And I'm like, I'm not paying somebody to shave the cat. I am perfectly
You
capable.
did. Wait a minute. You didn't.
So while my husband was at work, I took the cat out to the back deck and I tried to shave her. But the clippers that I had were like not very good. And she really didn't like the experience one bit.
No,
So
imagine that.
she's fighting me and the clippers end up dying. And all I get is like, I get the whole strip up the top of her back shaved. And then the gig is up. Like I can't go any further. And then my husband, my fiance, comes home from work and he's like, what happened to the cat? I'm like, how do you explain that? I'm like, Beth told me to do it. I'm sorry. Like I shaved the cat.
So basically, your cat looked like Mr. T until such time as the fur grew back in, and more or less.
Yeah.
Okay.
He died not long ago after that, but it wasn't my fault.
Oh.
It wasn't because of the shaving. She was just old and had leukemia.
You say it's not your fault. We'll investigate that later. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Now, since you brought the subject of roadkill, I gotta ask you: is there one thing? Let us just assume for a second that you're driving down the highway, and lo and behold, there is something fresh. Okay. Is there one thing that you make better than another by way of roadkill?
I myself have not butchered or cooked roadkill.
Uh-huh.
Yes. But I have considered bringing it home for taxidermy.
Okay.
Right? Because like some things are just cuter than others. You see an eagle on the side of the road, you kind of want to keep it. And my daughter tried to get me to bring a raccoon home that was very, very freshly dead the other day. This is the child that's like me. And I was like, no, Daddy wouldn't like that. But see, my dream would be like, I bring the deer home and then my man drains it of blood and innards and then gives me a steak that I can cook for him. That's the dream.
I think you and Jessica are kind of like on the same wavelength here. So just saying. All right. Now, you mentioned children. How many children do you have?
I have 4 kids.
How old are they?
And like 2 teenage girls, which is crazy, and then 2 little boys who were just boogie boarding down the stairs in a concrete hallway earlier. So that's our life.
Okay. So now, which one of you is the? I don't want to put this. Which one of you two is cleaning the shotgun on the front porch when the boys are showing up to take the girls out on dates, or are both of you doing it?
No,
You're the one doing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I grew up in the woods. So yes, behind me in the shelf up here is my handgun and my shotgun. Behind this one.
Okay, so you're the one out on the front porch. It's like, hi, you've come to pick her up. Cool.
Oh, yeah.
I'm her mom.
No, like
see this?
We had
see this scope? I can get you at 1,200 yards, boy. Don't try it, stupid.
My daughters are terrified. Like they're terrified of me. Normally it would be the dad, but they're scared of me, which is fine. I am terrifying. No. I might be small, but I'm scary. Here's a great Portland story. So
okay.
In 2020, when everything was going completely to shit and nothing worked right, I live like kind of in the ghetto. And in our neighborhood, we had all these people coming through and stealing catalytic converters. This is not a phenomenon I think that like the whole country deals with. Did you guys have catalytic converter thieves?
No. We have some catalytic converter thieves out in my neck of the woods. Yeah.
Okay. It was like huge here. So people were even doing it in the middle of the day. Like nobody cared.
Mm-hmm.
But one night I wake up and I hear this, you know,
mm-hmm.
I look out the window and there's some people that are stealing the catalytic converter out of a stolen car or an abandoned car that had been ransacked in front of our house.
Okay.
It's the middle of the night. I'm in my pajamas. Right. I have no shoes on. And I grab my handgun and I walk out the front door through the gate and walk up to these dudes that are cutting this out of the car. And I just have the weapon in my hand. And the one guy who's spotting for the other one goes, oh shit. He's like, dude, get in the car. And they like peeled off and ran down the road. And we didn't really have many problems after that.
Gee, I wonder why. It's like, guys, don't go near her house. The crazy one would come out. She ain't walking around with any shoes on. She got a handgun, and she will help you meet Jesus faster than you ever thought about. No, we ain't getting near that woman's house. No.
Yep. Yep.
Now, I tell you what, dear, if ever you and your wonderful husband ever find your way to the East Coast, let me tell you something. You're going to fit in West Virginia just like you had always been here all your life. I'm telling you what.
I love West Virginia. I've been there.
Oh, okay. What parts have you been to?
Well, we drove through it. So, because we were, we did a road trip with our kids. Well, we've done multiple road trips with our kids, but the last one we did was in 2021. And we came through there and I forget the path that we took, but I was like singing West Virginia, Mountain Mama the whole time. And my kids hated me.
Mm-hmm. Were you guys on your way to Northern Virginia?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I'll almost bet I know the way you went. You went one of two ways. You probably either went down 64 and picked up 81 to take you up to Charlottesville, up and around Richmond, and then north on I-90 to get up there. Or the other way of doing it is go to Charleston, right in the smack middle of the state, go up toward Morgantown, and then cut across the top of Maryland, then drop down. So if I had to guess, it's one of those two.
We went more northern.
Okay, then you probably went across the top of Maryland then. Okay.
Maryland is terrible. I'm sorry if people from
Maryland's atrocious.
Oh, God. It's just the worst. Although Cape May is great.
Yeah. Cannot beat that. All right. Now, I've got to ask you, and let me set this up with the following. Here you are. What do you love? It's a good picture. It's a picture of you taking a picture, which I find amusing. But where and when did you get the bug for being a shutterbug?
That's a good question.
Well,
It's
usually
kind of
I
a
ask.
lifetime process. I mean, I have pulled up some archives of the pictures that I took like way back in the day with just a little point and shoot digital camera
Okay.
in my Virginia days. And I have pictures of like garbage on park benches that I took in DC in maybe like 2006.
Okay.
So it's always been there. And I'm a visual communicator. So I draw, I paint. That's just kind of how I interact with the world. Uh, but it was in 2020, basically, I kept seeing all these things around me in Portland, that like there was a narrative about what was happening here, but I didn't think that it matched up with what I was actually seeing. So I would just take pictures with my phone around the city to show people, you're being lied to, or we are being lied to, or gaslit and stuff. And I got this thing for taking pictures of like piles of garbage and stuff and trying to make it artistic because um that's just me. Like I like things to look nice even if they're garbage. So that's how I ended up with the garbage ghost name on Twitter.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay.
because my subject matter was primarily garbage and things that were destroyed because it was all around me.
Mhm.
I just
Now
lived in a dump.
you said there was a narrative that you and other residents of Portland were being told. What is this narrative that it just drove you so crazy? Like, bullshit, I'm getting a camera. I'm going to document this. This is a load of horse shit. I'll prove to them this is not true. So, what is this narrative that finally got you off, up on your feet and doing something like this?
It was one that everything was fine. So that was just the overarching lie. That the riots were in a couple of blocks in the city and nowhere else. And if you tried to say that that wasn't true, then you were lying. And that Antifa was an idea.
Okay.
Those were the things that I did not agree with based on what I was seeing. I mean, and rightfully so, because I live in a neighborhood that is not within the 2 blocks that everything happened in. And we had riots in our neighborhood all the time. And we could hear them happening from our windows, and everything was not fine in this lovely city. So yeah, I grabbed my phone and started walking around and showing people and trying to just shove it in whoever's face that I could get. Because I even had family members who were telling me, "You're wrong. There's no riots near you." And I'm thinking like, dude, I've walked out of my front door and went in the middle of one. Like they're
Wow.
breaking the windows in my neighborhood. I can hear like the sounds of it. Um, so and just like the amount of destruction happening in this place just because of like the lawlessness and um the police weren't allowed to do anything basically. So there were just stolen cars everywhere. There's homelessness, there's shootings, there's trash everywhere. Everything's tagged. Like it was like hell. And we're all
Basic
supposed to
third
be
world conditions. Yeah.
yeah, and at the same time, they had us all locked down and everyone hated each other and like everyone was scared all the time. They were scared to leave their houses, they were scared to go do anything, and I was just tired of it. So I had to do something. Like I had to get out of my house and do something that felt like I was doing something. So
Yeah.
that's what I did. And then
Absolutely.
I had a friend who gave me his really old Nikon digital camera and taught me how to use that. That was a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And that's how I got into street photography. So
Okay.
I was trying to learn how to use this like behemoth of a camera. And I like going weird and dangerous places. So I would just take the camera around and take pictures of weird and dangerous places.
Interesting. Now, I need to stop for a moment, and I love my audience, but I am going to explain this. No, madam, I am not smoking meth off camera. To look, Jessica,
You can
I
see
have a
the cloud, you guys. It doesn't go away that fast.
you speak as though you
I
have
would know.
experience.
Oh, yes.
No.
Well, I used to snort it, but I'm around a lot of meth smokers now.
As I was explaining to guests, I am dealing with a head cold and a nose that's running faster than Carl Lewis at the Olympics. So if you guys see me go off camera, I'm trying not to gross anybody out. So that's the story. And no, we are not turning into this is not becoming an episode of Breaking Bad, the Front Porch Conservative. Thank you very much, Adam, you crazy
Aww.
Canadian. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm sold a bill of lies.
I have said that I have the greatest audience on the internet. I also have the biggest smartass audience on the internet, but then again, they take after their host. So there you go.
It's like my kids. Oh, there we go. Another hit of meth.
Yeah. Okay, I'll feel it. All right. All right. Moving along. So do you still have the Nikon?
I do, but I bought my own camera eventually, and I had to hustle. I had to do a lot of like pet portraits to get money, which wasn't my favorite, but you got to do what you got to do.
Fair enough.
As an unemployed mother of 3 in a hellhole of an expensive city. So, I saved up. I got my own mirrorless Nikon, which is silent, which is good for when you're trying to sneak photos of people who might or might not want their picture taken.
Oh, we're gonna get into that here in a minute, but because you brought up something, and I've got to ask you about this. And I suppose I could ask this question of friends of mine who live in New York City or Chicago or Baltimore or St. Louis or any other major metropolis in this country. These cities have their blessings and their curses. And more often than not anymore, people, rightly or wrongly focus on the curses of living in a big city. Yet people keep flocking to them. What is it about Portland? And I mean this question in all sincerity. What is it about Portland that makes it a truly unique place to live? And there's no smart ass in that question. It's a straight up genuine question.
The good parts about it are that you have basically every beautiful thing around you that you could want to see within a couple of hours. For one, you have rivers, you have mountains on the horizon that you can get to. You have the beach within an hour and a half away. You can get to a desert in a couple of hours. Like, you have everything. So just the natural beauty is one thing. But the city itself, like the whole Keep Portland Weird thing, I mean, they like stole that from somebody else, but it it does have its own weirdness, and it used to be a charming weirdness where people were very free to be themselves, and you would have just oddballs, and a freedom to be an oddball or have an oddball business, and just fun weird.
Okay.
On top of it, the food scene was fabulous. It's kind of a wreck now because it's too expensive, and the service industry here is really bad. But that used to be just wonderful food, wonderful coffee, interesting places to go, friendly, mild weather, and it was its own place. It was like a secret.
So how long have you lived in Portland now?
I live in Portland for almost 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So did Portland, I mean, look, you grew up in Oregon, and as you said, you lived down the logging meth road. So you had some familiarity with Portland even before you moved there.
Yeah.
When in the mind of Oregonians did Portland start to trend downward, so to speak? Or was it something that just happened with COVID and then all of a sudden it just went to hell?
It was before that. The people would say the most popular opinion I've heard is 2016. And it
Okay.
was because people took a collective shit over Donald Trump, and everyone just never recovered from that episode
Okay.
in our history. The whole resist thing, and I don't know, that you had like kind of the rise of Antifa then, and more like violent, intolerant behavior.
Okay.
And the lawlessness started like ticking up then.
Okay. Okay.
But
All right. Cool.
2020, it just went off a cliff
Yeah, I can just imagine. I can
in a
just imagine.
major way. It was like
Mm,
hell.
wow. Mm. So, you, by your own admission, you love to like walk around into dangerously strange places or strange places that are dangerous, or maybe both. Who knows? Um, Tell me about a typical day of photography work for tara-Faul. I mean, is there a certain hour of the day where you hop in the car, go to a certain place, and then you hop out of the car and you're walking around with the camera? I mean, what is the process like when you are in shutterbug mode?
At the beginning of my journey, it would mostly be on a weekend morning when my kids are playing video games with their dad. And nobody misses me. And I would head out in the morning to go downtown to mess around on some bridges or look for some fog and some people to talk to and all of that. It's
Okay.
a lot more fluid at this point because I started collaborating with my friend Kevin, and being with another person gives me a little more like freedom and access to go to more dangerous places or uh, talk to some more interesting people. So, we kind of collaborate on where do we want to go? What is our goal today? What do we want to go see? And it can be, let's go to this tent village on the inner east side and just go see who we can talk to. Let's go try to get into an RV and see what it's like inside of this homeless RV. Let's go down this weird trail. So there's a little bit of planning, but a lot of the time it's just like, here's the thought that hits me and I'm going to go out. And then you get out of the car and almost immediately some kind of crazy situation is right in your face. And most people will probably like walk away from it. And to me, I'm like, all right, sweet, let's get the party started. Like someone's
Mhm.
ranting, someone's taking a shit in the street, somebody's shooting up, whatever. So
Okay. Okay. Well, before we're going to take a look at some of your pictures here in just a moment, but I'm going to do a real quick commercial for the both of us. If you have come to this live stream right now and you're listening to this fabulous conversation between myself and documentarian tara-Faul, my name is Brian Tripp and I'm the Front Porch Conservative. I've got channels on Rumble and on YouTube, and you can follow me on Twitter at the Front Porch C1. And this wonderful young lady is named tara-Faul. And where can people find you on social media, dear?
on X, Twitter, I just can't. Twitter, I'm
I know. I follow
tarafaul,
on Twitter.
tarafaul 503, which is my area code. And on Instagram, I am Ghost Portland.
There you go. There you go. All right, let's get into some of your work. So let me pull this up, and then I want to ask you a question. And this one, these are more recent ones that you've posted. Which, by the way, you are the postingest picture person on Twitter I have ever seen. Which, granted, you're a photo documentarian. If you're not posting pictures, it's kind of like, well, all right, this is nice to take pictures, but I got to show them to somebody. But I mean, these are more recent, and I want to pull this one up. What is the backstory to this one? I mean, yes, you have a caption here, and if everybody wanted to read it, they could. But out from under these blankets, and it looks like a yellow beanie, is this what looks like a disembodied hand. These look like EMT workers. What's the backstory on this picture?
All right. Well, the backstory on that is that there was a man who goes by the name of Squints, who had been living underneath some cardboard and some wet blankets at that one spot on that street and had not gotten up for 5 days. And one
Wow.
of the neighbors who lives around there was concerned about him and had called for help from emergency services multiple times. Nobody could really do anything about him because he didn't exactly want help. But she was concerned. So she called me and my friend Kevin in to try to like help with getting him off the street because he literally had not moved off of that spot for 5 days. And
Wow.
he was probably going to die within, I would guess, like 1 to 2 days of staying there. So there was a huge collective effort to get this guy off of the side of the road. I mean, this was like a busy street too. It's right along the public transportation. People are walking up and down there. And this dude is just like laying in what I considered to be a coffin on the side of the road. I mean, he was hyperventilating. He was not he was hypothermic and had rotting sores on his body. Was begging for food, but like wouldn't get up. So those are the EMTs having him sign paperwork saying I'm refusing help, which
Wow.
seemed a little bit like a death warrant at the time. But thankfully, in about a half hour, we got him to change his mind, and he accepted help and got taken away by the paramedics. And just seeing him get pulled out of that filthy, wet pile, like you wouldn't have even known that there was a human under there at first, because it was just this piece of cardboard over a wet spot on the sidewalk. And then there was like a person inside of it living there with rotting sores all over his body, like begging for McDonald's.
Now, let me ask you,
not bringing McDonald's.
is this the same? Is this the same? That's the same person. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was living under there.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you a question. You're a photographer. It's 2020. You get the shutter bug. You're getting out. You've got to get out because it's just driving you crazy. You've got to do something. For the love of God, you've got to do something. And you're walking and you're working with your friend Kevin Dahlgren. Am I pronouncing his last name correctly?
Dahlgren.
Okay. Dahlgren. Okay. Which I want to ask you a question about that here in a minute. Now, as a photographer, there's any number of subjects that you could take pictures of. I mean, for example, Ansel Adams' landscapes and Gett's children. In your case, it's the homeless. What drew you to them that you're like, I want to make this the subject of my work?
It was a little bit by accident, just because if I'm walking around taking street photos, and I live in Portland, and there's a lot of people who live on the street, naturally I'm going to encounter them. And for whatever reason, socially, I have a better knack for communicating with them than I do with like most people. So I would just end up in conversations with them, and for whatever reason, started asking if I could take people's portraits, and began to get this collection of the unseen, or, the unclean people of the city, and realized that I just really enjoyed it because, one, it's like a human connection and is documenting a moment in time, which seems meaningful. And at the same time, it's like anybody could go learn to do landscape photography or whatever, but like most people aren't or wouldn't be doing this. And so it feels a little more like worthwhile, I guess. Because I don't know, I just kind of do weird stuff. So whatever the normal version of something is, I go off to the side of it a little bit.
Okay. All right. That's fair enough. Now, let me ask you a question about the homeless community in Portland, which there's, like I said, there's a lot of questions that I have, and part of them touch on my hometown because in one sense, we have a similar situation where I live in that we're torn between two things. And I just wonder if this is the same case in Portland. You're torn between two instincts as a community in terms of how you try to address people who are homeless. There's one instinct that says, I want to be compassionate. I want to be kind. I want to reach out. This is one of God's creatures. I don't want to see any person suffer. On and on. The other part of your brain goes, yes, but are they here because of choices that they've made? And what is the appropriate response between between enabling and holding accountable. Portland is a major metropolitan city, which I'm assuming has resources available. Money is not an issue in Portland, I would
Oh, yeah,
assume.
tons of money.
Okay. And this is not in any way to denigrate anyone that you have come across in your photographic work, but I'm just curious, who, if you had to describe these individuals to someone who had never been to Portland or had never seen your work or were not familiar with the dynamics that go on in Portland, Oregon, and someone said, who are these individuals? You would tell them, well, they are.
They're a very mixed bunch of people, for one,
Okay.
because a lot of them aren't even from here. So you have, when we decriminalized drugs,
Okay.
it brought in all parts of the country to our city to live on the streets and do drugs. So there's a large contingent of people who kind of threw their lives away and came over here because they thought it sounded fun. They thought it sounded like a great scene. I've even heard people who, like, I met a guy from Pennsylvania who told me that he came over here because he thought that polyamory was really popular. And he could have some, like,
Is polyamory really popular in Oregon?
I don't know. I don't have friends, so
fair enough.
Kind of friends.
Okay. Well,
the weird thing is,
I'm just asking.
I have been asked so many times on the streets, like, do you do group sex? Are you polyamorous? Would you and your husband like to? And I'm like, no, that's stop asking that. So in that sense, yes, I guess it's kind of popular. But we had a whole influx of people who came here to do drugs, and they shipwrecked their lives on our streets, and now they're stuck here because they're like dependent. And I'm sure quite a few of them have died at this point. But so you have the out-of-state burnouts. That's one group of people, which is sad in its own, because it's like some of those people didn't realize that they were going to become like this. They thought it would be party zone and it would be fun. And now their lives are ruined and they don't really have any way to get out of it. So you have those. You have the actual like down and outs, which do still exist, but they're a little less visible because nobody really wants to help them, because I don't know. That one's kind of hard to explain. And then you have like the mentally ill, which is a pretty large part of what's going on here. So you have the addicted and you have the mentally ill, and mental illness and addiction kind of go hand in hand. It's hard to pick out between which came first. Mm-hmm. But one of the major threads that I've seen in the people that are mentally ill enough or addicted enough to not function in society is that they had some kind of major trauma in their childhood. Okay. And so they're just not good at dealing with normal life. And I get that. Like, that could have easily been me. Yeah. Very, very easily. Like, if I hadn't gotten married to a functional person, that would probably be me out there. So I have a little more compassion probably than other people do. And at the same time, like, I'm up close and personal with these people. So I have probably even more disgust than most people would have. But the mental illness and the trauma are huge. And like, what do you do with that? Because those people, at this point, they can't take care of themselves.
Right.
Like, they really can't. And I think we all understand that it's hard enough to like deal with the modern life and all the craziness and the bureaucracy and like, forms and appointments and like all that stuff, like taxes. I don't know. Like, can you imagine trying to re-enter life after you've just dumped yourself on the street? So it almost feels like an unsolvable problem at the moment, but I hope it's not.
Let me ask you a question, because I have part of what you guys are dealing with now is creeping its way over to my side of the country. We haven't quite gone fully as far as Portland or Seattle or certain cities in California, but let me take a guess. The argument was made if we decriminalize drugs, it'll cause the rate of consumption or illegal or illicit use to go down. Am I close to being right about that? That was the argument that was made?
It was that it would make the incarceration rate for light users to go down, so then we would save prison space and we would save money on arrests, and we could use that money to fund the schools, and we could use the money to open up detox treatment centers, which they had no plan for, nothing set up. And years later, I think they've opened one. So they got all these people that come over here and become addicts and ruin their lives, and there's nowhere for them to go. And they're from all over the country. I'm not kidding you. Like, I have heard all the states, like even Alaska. Like, how did you get here from Alaska?
Wow. Let me tell you a story about my hometown. Then we'll get back. I promise I'll get this back on the track. But these issues are sort of interwoven. So that's part of why I want to have a conversation with you about this. I have a friend of mine who's lived here since the early 1990s. She moved down here from New Hampshire with her son. And she was out walking her dogs one day in a very nice part of town. It's a very safe area. It's a wonderful park. And this gentleman came up to her. Well, my friend's been around the block and she knows what's what. So she was appropriately leery. Well, they struck up a conversation. And he told her flat out to her face, the only reason that I moved to this town is because I heard you guys were giving away free needles and I could get all kinds of free stuff. Now, my friend wasn't necessarily surprised because this sort of thing we'd all been suspected for years, but we don't have it to the same degree that Portland does or Seattle or other places on the West Coast. But yeah, that same kind of mentality is creeped in. So it's like everybody's trying to figure out how to deal with this now. I mean, I had a conversation with a local, I don't know whether you call him activist or celebrity or both, but he's a little bit of everything. And you'd love this character. He goes by the nickname Alligator Jackson. I mean, he is quite the character, and in a good way. In a good way. And he had a member of city council, I will not say who it was, make the statement to him that drug tourism is a fiction. In other words, literally, she said this. We have studies to prove it. We have studies that prove that this fiction about people coming to your town because they get free needles and free stuff. No, that's not true. It's not true at all. And we're all sitting here looking at her. Yeah, I'd like to see these studies. But yeah, I mean, I was talking with Gettr one day about this and I was like, you got to be kidding me. She's like, oh yeah, that's exactly what she said. I was like, okay, let her come down to the city mission or down on certain parts of downtown and we'll see if she wants to put that theory to the test.
Right.
You know,
right. Nothing's more bullshit than a study.
Oh, I know. We have a study.
It was a study. All right. Well, fuck off. Like, that's nice. Why don't you go observe reality?
Exactly. Which is part of what makes your work and your photography so extraordinarily interesting. I got another picture I want to pull up here. And this one, I know there's going to be a story behind this.
Oh, no. The story of that is Chinatown. And that wall has been pooped on probably more times than any wall in this city. For one, it smells terrible. And so this is in a main part of Chinatown, which is a neighborhood that I hang out in a lot. I kind of like know all the homeless people there. And that doorway is just like one of the filthiest places in the city. It's right next to a needle drop box, but I don't think anybody uses it. And one time I found, okay, so the needle drop box has a biohazard symbol on the side of it. And someone took a shit. Someone took a shit on the sidewalk right next to the biohazard sign. And I was like, this is the greatest moment of my life. This is so disgusting. It's so weird. Like,
but it sends a message. It
absolutely
does. Yeah.
And I've taken pictures of human dumps all over the sidewalks here. And people get so mad at me for it. Like, why are you making us look at this? And I'm like, why are you making me live in this? Like, this is disgusting.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, just like people should know that it's real. And then if I don't show them, they'll tell me I'm lying. And then if I show them, they're like, why would you do that to me? Why would you put me through that?
Yeah, apparently your shit pics are the stuff of legend, according to Jessica. So there you go.
Oh man, I have taken some good ones. I have one that I haven't released yet because this is like full honesty. I finally hit 15,000 followers on Twitter. And every time I post, thank you. But every time I post one of my poop pictures, I lose followers. And I want to make it like above the threshold enough that I don't go back down below 15.
I can relate to that. I can relate to that a little bit. I mean, the what you just described.
Somebody had diarrhea, like. Sorry, what'd you say?
Okay, you're freezing a little bit, but I think you're coming back in now. Okay, there you go. There you go. No, I was getting ready to tell the story. There you go. There's this one picture that the legendary guitarist Eric Clapton, absolutely loves. Back in the late 60s and the early 70s, it was nothing for people to go around spray painting on a clean wall, "Clapton is God." Well, this one picture that Eric Clapton loves so much is this dog that's hiked up its leg and it's peeing on the wall where this phrase is written. And when Clapton saw it, he just died laughing. He's
That's
like,
hilarious.
this is so appropriate. He's like, if ever I need an ego check, here it is. They proclaim me to be a guitar god and the dog's pissing on me. So it's like, what more can I ask for as a guitarist? It's like, oh, wow.
That's awesome.
Oh, absolutely. Now, okay, so you've been taking photos on the streets of Portland now for 4 years.
Two.
Oh, 2. Okay, excuse me, 2. Stand corrected. Now, what was the reaction that you got from people on the streets of Portland? You know, they're seeing this, don't take this the wrong way, skinny white girl on a camera walking up, and they're like, who the hell is this chick? And I don't know if I want to be talking to her. Why is she taking pictures? What am I going to get on a list? What kind of reaction did you get initially when you started taking these pictures? And over time, because I mean, it's almost sounds like you have become the angel of the streets. I mean, the situation you described a little while ago. Here's this gentleman. He's been laying in the same spot for 5 days. He's got hypothermia. He's on his deathbed, literally and figuratively, and people are calling you. They're not calling his relatives. They're not calling his friends. They're calling you. They're like, Tara, can you, for the love of God, this poor man's going to die. Can you get down here and do something? When did that transition happen that you went from being, oh man, I don't want to talk to this woman, to you're the first person they call when something really goes wrong?
It was a gentle transition, but I'll say, like, weirdly, people were pretty open and receptive to me on the streets pretty much right off the bat.
Okay.
And I think part of that is just to do with my personality is not very, I'm not like in your face and I'm not polished. So I don't make people feel lesser or uncomfortable. I'm just kind of there, and people want to talk to me about something, I'll listen, and, we just hang out, and it's low key. So, I kind of got accepted out there on the streets, but the skinny white chick thing is funny because there was an anecdote that somebody said recently where I had been wandering around on the Inner East Side with my camera one day and entered this group of it was like Black men and women. They were hanging around this tiny home. They were kind of having like a little bit of a block party, but it was a homeless thing too. And so I just walked in and I was like, hey guys, what's up? We're having fun. Can I take your picture? And they were like, okay, sure. So some of them posed and I got a nice shot of them. And then my friend Kevin ran into one of the girls that was in the group the other day. And she was like, oh yeah, you hang out with that skinny white chick, right? And she was like, I've never seen some like white girl in the ghetto just walk up to people and be like, hey, what's up guys? Can I take your picture? Like, so I don't know.
That's great.
It's kind of funny. I I just walk into it. But it after I became more known out there for doing it, because there's not that many people doing what I do. People did start coming to me for, I'm missing my family member. Can you look for this person? Or the people I encountered would tell me like, I need this or that. And because I'm like probably too compassionate, I'm not like one of the bleeding heart liberals, but at the same time, if I see a need that's in front of me, I want to take care of it, because I am a compassionate person. So people just realize that they could come to me for, can you look for this person? Or I need food, or I need socks, or my dog needs food, or can you give me a ride to do this? Or I need to get my ID back so I can go back to work, and can you help me? So somehow, in some weird way, I became a social worker. I don't even know what I am. My car is full of food and coats and dog food and medical care supplies, and like I don't know how that happened. I'm just a photographer. I'm not even a photographer.
There
And
is a story. Yeah, there's a story that I remember from many years ago. Matter of fact, I had to go look up the details before I came on here, because when I saw some of your posts on Twitter, it really took me back in time to this. In the early 1980s in Philadelphia, there was a young child, and I mean, he wasn't even a teenager yet. His name was Tara-Faul, and it was Christmas time, and he's sitting around with his mom and dad, and they're watching the local evening news, the 6 o'clock broadcast, right? And the reporter had done a story, or a series of stories, about homelessness in Philadelphia. So the evening broadcast turns off, and this little kid, Trevor, looks at his mom and dad, says, "Mom, Dad, I want to do something. Look, we've got leftovers. Can we take them down there?" The parents kind of looked at each other and went, "Okay, sure." So they took a plate full of food, and Trevor found a homeless person. No idea who it was. No idea who he was. And just gave him a plate of food. The next night, he wanted to go out and do it again. And again. And this led to the creation of an organization known as Trevor's Place. And that, out of that outreach, came an outreach to the homeless in the Philadelphia area that's still going on 40 years later. So, I mean,
really
you
cool.
know, you make the statement, I don't know how all this got started. It just got started by being a compassionate human being, you know, and trying to find a way to reach people. Because, I mean, you know, we're about to go into the holiday season. You know, I mean, next week is Thanksgiving. After that's going to be Christmas. Yes, there are going to be homeless shelters and other organizations that try to help the homeless in Portland, Oregon, or in my hometown, or, you know, for people who are watching this wherever they may be around the country. You know, you guys, I mean, everybody in this audience knows some place that in some way is trying to help. Now, we can sit here and argue the merits of how well they're doing it, or the motives behind it, which I got a question for you about that, because you made a comment that just intrigued the crap out of me. We'll get to that in a minute. You know, these are the people who are what I call the unseen scene. We see them, we don't think about them. The other thing that was going through my mind, and if you're a fan of U2, then you're going to recognize the song. It's not a U2 song, but it's the same era. Phil Collins, Another Day in Paradise. Great song. If you've never heard it, I recommend it to you. Because it touches on the question of homelessness. And, you know, because I was like, the chorus goes, "Oh, think twice, it's another day for you and me in paradise." And the verses talk about the interactions with people that Phil Collins would see on the streets, either walking the streets or just driving by in a car. And, you know, they are the unseen scene. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised at all that you sort of become the guardian angel of Portland, Oregon to the homeless. I'm not surprised by that at all. You know,
It's a crazy journey.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely it is. Now, there's another picture that I've got here, and this one, I want to set this up because there's another picture that goes along with it, and it really just kind of shocked me. And I'll put this up, and I'd like you to tell the story related to this young lady.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, that's Ariel.
Okay.
And when I first met her, it was months ago. She was living on the sidewalk along Burnside, which is a main road here. And she looked okay. Like, she looked fresh, but she is legit crazy. Like, she would be ranting at people and screaming at people as they're walking by on the sidewalk and yelling at people in her head, and was living in a tent, like on the sidewalk on this main road. So I stopped and talked to her when she was yelling at people one time, and because I don't know, it's just what I do. So uh, someone's ranting for whatever reason, I want to go talk to them. So she calmed down and like tried to have a conversation with me, but she's too crazy to have a conversation with. Like, I got her name, and she wanted to give me her meal that some charity had just given her, and was trying to give me all these things from her tent. So she trusts me, I guess. So every time I go by her camp, I just kind of stop and talk to her, and she's deteriorated over the months. And when I saw her camp the last time, the tent was stuffed full of garbage. The whole area is strewn with garbage. Like, absolutely, just, it's like a disaster zone. And so I thought, oh, Ariel moved out. She's gone. Like, maybe she went and got help. And so I look in the tent to take a picture of the garbage, because that's what I'm going to do. And I see hair, and I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, is she dead? Like, this is crazy. And then she moved, and I told my friend Kevin, I was like, dude, there's a person inside of that, which the tent looked like just packed full of garbage at first. So I was a little shocked and then terrified that I had found dead Ariel, but she was alive and in really bad shape. I mean, look at her. She looks like a wild animal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, you had mentioned that she looked fresh. I want to show you another picture, and I want to show the audience another picture. Tell me the difference in time frame between this one and this.
I was like 2 months, 2 or 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dear God.
And it's the same spot. She's been living in the same spot this whole time, right out in front of everybody on a sidewalk. And even worse than that. So we have this guy who runs, he's high up in the Portland Chamber of Commerce. His name is John. And I ended up in kind of a feud with him in public because he kept taking all these pictures of areas of Portland I spent a lot of time in, like this one right here.
Okay.
From the top of buildings or, a particular angle, and is like, Portland's vibrant, Portland's wonderful, everything's great here now. And he actually took a picture from a building like right above where she's living and tried to tell everyone, look at how perfect everything is now, because he works for the Chamber of Commerce and, he has a vested interest. So
let me run this video while you're talking. Go ahead. This runs about a minute, and I'll let you talk in the background.
Yeah. This area is where the Portland Chamber of Commerce wanted people to think everything's fine, because he went to the top of a building into a VIP room and took a picture from way up there. And I went down below the same building and I was like, look at this. Like, did you stop and talk to Ariel? Did you see this other person who is one-legged, like laying in a corner? Did you see the burnt out scooters that we have, like rental scooters? People languishing under the gates of the Chinatown gates. Like, fuck you. Go fuck yourself. Take your stupid, ugly photos and shove them up your ass, because like, that's what's actually happening right there. A person lives inside of that.
My God.
And her name is Ariel.
Dear Lord. And right below this is right above this is the Portland Chamber of Commerce.
Above that is the Hoxton Hotel, which he was hanging out in a VIP room. The Chamber of Commerce is actually very close to that. It's another high-rise building, but he took a nice picture from it over the river and is like, look at that. But if you look down in the other direction on the street level, it's like, what the fuck? Yeah. So I ended up feuding with this guy and kind of trolled him a little bit. because I was just over it. I'm like, don't try to do that. And then you get all these tourists who come in here and are like,
You've been doing your photography now on the streets of Portland for a little over 2 years. How much, I don't want to put this, how many of those kind of fights with John, Roberta, Helen, Robert, whoever it may be, whatever the names, how many of those kind of fights have you gotten into where you have one group of city leaders or maybe county leaders who are saying, no, we don't have a homeless problem here. No, everything's perfectly fine. Everything's wonderful. And then you're sitting here going, you want to see the pictures, guys? How much of that have you run into?
I've had only a few feuds with the high profile public, like servants. They're not really servants, but whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
It's more of the army of their simps that come after me and call me like a poverty pimp, or that I'm profiting off the homeless and everything I'm saying is a lie, and or that these are crisis actors, or I'm paying people to say what they like, because I don't think that they can deal with
Really?
Yeah, so it's the army of simps that are more of a problem than, because the real politicians, like, they're not going to come out there and do it themselves. They'll do a photo op and like act like they care or whatever, but they have too much to lose, like getting into a fight with just some street rat with a camera. So it's the simps who are like, everything you say is a lie, or I'm gonna find you in the street and break your camera. I'm gonna find you in an alley and fuck you up. I'm gonna come to your house. Like, I've had the greatest threats.
Just for simply going out on the street and taking a picture of one of God's creatures and saying, this is your fellow citizen.
Yes.
They have their problems. Yes, they have their issues, but for the love of God, will you help these people? And they're just like, nope, it doesn't exist. It's not real. I don't want to see it. It's not true. Nope. This is what you're running into?
Yeah, because there's, in the hardcore left, there's this really hard devotion to the harm reduction idea. Are you familiar with harm reduction?
No, go with it.
Harm reduction is when the county or the city sends out workers to hand out needles, pipes, foil for smoking fentanyl off of. And, basically they have these whole packages. They even had like boofing stuff, which is like putting drugs up your ass.
Come again with that?
Putting drugs up your ass. That's what boofing is. So rather than like shooting something up, you stick it in your butthole.
People have always said that I was a little bit sheltered and naive, but now there's your proof, folks. Go ahead. Go ahead.
It's a thing. So yeah, they'll send crews out to hand these things. And I, like, in theory, I understand the whole needle exchange thing where you bring dirty needles and then you get clean ones. That's not what's happening, though. The needles end up all over the fucking sidewalk. Like, I kick them accidentally all the time. So they're bringing these things. They're giving people foil to smoke fentanyl off of. Like, what kind of a sick, perverse idea is it to give somebody foil so they can smoke the deadliest drug, like, in history on the streets? That's just messed up to me. These people are so devoted to the idea of harm reduction being a good thing, where they're handing these people like the tools to continue to kill themselves on the streets, that if you come up and you show the reality of what that actually does and you make people look at it, they hate it. It's like you've attacked their religion, you're attacking their idea of the world, and they hate you for it. And they hate you for showing the mental illness and the lack of what is actually compassion, for letting these people live on the streets like this. Women half clothed, just roaming around the streets, crying and getting raped over and over and over again.
Jesus.
So they hate anyone who attacks their, what is essentially a religion. I mean, it's kind of like the mask thing or the COVID shot. Like, that level of anger that people get when you confront their idea of reality?
Yep.
It's the same thing. So yes, and I've been beaten up a couple times, and like,
Yeah, I have friends of mine and acquaintances. Just to give you some perspective from my hometown, drugs have been a problem in my hometown now for probably a good 20 years. And I could chronicle, every instance where some major event happens. Somebody gets shot, someone gets killed. The thing that really kicked it off in my hometown, trying to bring some kind of awareness to the issue, is there were a group of high schoolers for the junior senior prom and were murdered just being around a drug deal. Okay. So somewhere along the way in my hometown, we did the same thing Portland did, and that is we're going to give away free needles. We're going to give away drug kits. Okay. Well, citizens of this town, who are remarkably commonsensical, by the way, kept trying to tell the local board of health this is a bad idea because all you're doing is enabling. You're going to have this stuff laying around the streets. You're going to have this stuff showing up in places that you never expected. And sure enough, the common sense of the citizens of my hometown bore out over the proclamations of the county board of health. I have heard stories about kids being at a local park and they stepped on a needle.
that's terrifying.
Yeah, yeah. And I have had friends of mine who've taken photographs. I've found needles laying around on top of garbage cans, on top of, waste receptacles in the main heart of downtown. And we're trying to tell people, hey, guys, this is not working. Yeah, but we're reducing HIV transmission. Yeah, and you're getting a whole bunch of other stuff off of this that is the unintended consequence. But you guys don't want to deal with that. You don't want to acknowledge it's happening. Well, it's not happening because it's not true.
Exactly.
And it's just a perpetual cycle of this stuff.
Yes.
So yeah, I feel you. I feel
It's
exactly.
why I'm like, I have to shove it in your face. I have the receipts. I have the paper trail. We found a needle in our driveway one time.
Jeez.
Like, thankfully we found it before the kids went out there, but
Yeah.
and we're not even like, I don't even know how it got there. I guess probably somebody who was collecting cans dropped it. That's my best guess.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Probably
we have
so.
bottle deposit here, which is a large reason that we have the drug problem that we have. Or, it props it up.
Okay. There's a phrase that you used with one of your photos, and I found this so fascinating. You called it the homeless industrial complex. I was like, okay, I think I know where she's going with this, but I have so got to ask her about this. So, tara-Faul describes something called the homeless industrial complex. What is it in your mind that is going on out in your hometown that you gave it a 3-word designation? What is the homeless industrial complex?
The homeless industrial complex are the NGOs, the nonprofits, the incredible amount of money that gets dumped into solving a problem that they never solve, because if you solve it, you don't get the money anymore. So they have found some very good ways of siphoning money into these programs to solve homelessness, which anyone can see that is not being solved. There's a bunch of people making a lot of money on this, and nobody can figure out, like, where is the money going? Why are the people not actually getting the help that they need? Why does this keep getting bigger? Why do we keep needing more money? And like, who is making the money off of this? So
keep talking.
Yeah, the homeless industrial complex. I mean, it's the government, but it's also the nonprofits. So the nonprofits are profiting somehow. There's a lot of money and some pretty unstellar results.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. I mean, here's a young man, injecting himself in that moment, needles laying all over the place. Here's the receptacle where they're supposed to go.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I found like raided sharps containers laying in various parts of the city, and just like buckets of needles, used ones. I found a bucket of used needles that was also full of human shit near my house, and I was like, what am I even looking at? Why am I standing so close to this? Like, why is my head halfway inside of this bucket? But it's just like, it's mind-boggling. There are things that people would never believe if you didn't take a picture.
Yeah. No. All right. I've got another one for you. And what's the story behind this young man?
That guy, his name is Christian, and he is crazy. So he said that he gets bus tickets to get admitted into psychiatric care in various cities, but that he gets admitted and then quickly discharged and then kind of just left to like figure things out on the streets. Now, this is his narrative.
Okay.
Granted, he is crazy. He can make conversation very well, but he's also schizophrenic. So he came here from, well, his family's in Tillamook, which is on the coast, but he has lived in Washington. He's lived in all kinds of places, and basically they give him a transport, like in a van or a bus, to go get psychiatric care, and then he ends up on the streets, and then they just ship him somewhere else because he's a problem. So my friend Kevin and I, we found him in a parking lot yelling because somebody had stole his money, and he was saying, I'm going to have to go murder this person because he stole my money, and that was my bus money to get back home to Tillamook. And I was like, okay, well, we can avoid a murder here. So I gave him some cash to get him to stop plotting murder, and he calmed down and had a conversation. But then maybe 30 minutes later, he had his pants around his ankles and was walking in the middle of the street yelling. So he's probably not going home. I don't think that he's going home. I think he's probably still in the parking lot.
Let me ask you a question. So in a situation like the one you just described, here's a person, maybe not Christian, but let's just say some other individual who is making a disturbance. And under normal circumstances, someone would call the police. So let's say the Portland Police Department arrives, a couple of uniformed officers, and they're like, sir, quite obviously you're making a disturbance. We'd like to help you. So let's say they take him away. Where does someone like a Christian, okay, you're shaking your head. Where does a person like a Christian go in that situation? Or does that even is what I'm describing even happening in Portland, that someone contacts the police and, bless his heart, we're going to find something. Okay, it sounds like I am so far off base here. Tell me what's going on out there.
I mean, okay, if you call, they're probably not coming. Like, the police are probably not coming. I've done it with almost no success. So if you call, though, and they actually do come, unless the person is physically assaulting people or is in the act at that very second of like damaging property, nothing's going to happen. Like, people crawl underneath cars. They'll be wandering around in the middle of the street screaming. They can be naked. They can be like doing drugs in the middle of the street. It doesn't really matter. Like, they're not going to get taken anywhere. And if they do, they're just going to get released immediately. Now, our DA, the city DA, was like one of those Soros appointed nefarious creatures. He looks like a cuck, but like he did a lot of damage. So, like, I guess liberal women think he's attractive. Whatever. He would release everybody, like the crazy, the Antifa, people who were actually like breaking into buildings, people who were stealing cars. It doesn't matter. Like, he just released everybody. So even if they get taken in, still nothing happens, but they're not getting taken in. You would be shocked by what people can do here. And the police are like, we can't really do anything. Sorry, like we're gonna walk away. Yes, this woman's like completely naked and screaming in the middle of the street, but she's not a danger to herself or others,
Oh my God.
which is the criteria of getting taken in. And like, I don't know how do you not draw that line at like this person is probably going to die of an overdose if they keep doing this thing or get run over, or I don't know. Like, you can't crawl under a car and just hang out under there and not expect to get run over eventually. Wouldn't that?
Yeah,
So
you would
the
think.
bar for like danger to yourself or others is like way down here.
That's a crime. So how prevalent is the use of Narcan out there to bring back OD patients?
It's a way of life here. I mean, we have billboards about it. There's
Yep.
literal billboards. There's signs all over the place about using it. People Narcan animals that overdose because like people's animals will get into used foils from fentanyl or find a pill or, just like lick some residue off of something and OD. So you can Narcan up a dog's nose, for instance. I learned that from a homeless woman who's had to do it multiple times because her dog got into it. There are people who get Narcaned regularly by the police and the first responders to the point where it's like, oh, Greg or whoever, it's 2:00 on Wednesday. It's time to go revive Greg. If we didn't have Narcan, like a lot of this problem would have been, I don't want to say solved, but reduced.
But in the name of compassion, because we don't want to see anyone die. Yeah.
And people don't fear death, or a lot of them probably want to die, which is the problem.
Yeah. Well, I'm learning all kinds of stuff tonight. Narcan up the nose, drugs up the ass. I tell you what, I'm really getting an education tonight.
Boofing.
Boofing
kits. Yeah, it was like they were handing out literature about it, about how to boof. They were giving it out on the streets, like, here's your primer on putting drugs up your ass because it's safer than shooting up. The government was doing that. Our government.
Lord have mercy. I'm having that Johnny Carson moment where I go,
yeah.
Let me ask you this question. I've seen some posts recently on your Twitter page where people are donating just tons of coats, blankets, pillows, etc. With the reputation that you've gotten on the streets of Portland, is that becoming more prevalent where people are saying, "Hey, look, I've got this extra blanket. Look, I know that you work a lot with the homeless and take this." I mean, how much is that increasing, or was that like just a one-time event, or is that sort of like you said your car is filled with blankets and coats and all kinds of things? Is it just sort of evolving with the passing of time?
It is evolving. Yeah. People just see me out there doing things and they see the people that I'm interacting with. And in a lot of cases, it is an actual, it's a need, like there's people who are mentally ill or really just, they're not super capable of taking care of themselves and nothing's really being done about addressing their needs. So yeah, people, they give me pet food, coats, and sometimes they just send a donation and say, hey, can you use this to take some people out to lunch? Or can you buy cigarettes for the homeless people? I've actually gotten donations for that too. Like just bringing a little bit of happiness out into the world. And so it's becoming more and more, and eventually I'll run out of room for doing this because there's only so much of me and my little car. But yeah, it's...
Now let me ask you a question, because this to me seems like the golden opportunity for two parties that aren't necessarily on the same side to find a way to work together. If they can get over their anger over the fact that you're trying to point out a problem, it would seem to me that city officials in Portland or what county are you in? Is Portland in, by the way? Is it Portland County, or
No, it's Multnomah County.
Multnomah? Okay. It
Multnomah.
would Okay, it would seem to me that the officials in your county or in the city of Portland would be like, "Hey, this person is at the tip of the spear. She's reaching people we can't get to." Okay. I know that private citizens are coming to you and saying, "Hey, here's some extra coats, here's some blankets, here's some food. Hey, here's money for cigarettes." Are city officials or county officials in any way, shape, or form trying to like reach out to you and say, "Hey, you can get to people that we can't get to. Can we partner together?" Or is that like they're like, "No, no, we got our way of doing it, and you're not part of the club, and we're done."
As far as the current officials, I know some of them. They're not going to come to me to ask if we can partner together in that way, but we have partnered together some in the sense of the people who actually want to solve something and they want to know what's actually happening out on the streets have come to
Sure.
me and Kevin and said, "Can I come along with you? Or can you share some of your footage with me so I can understand what's really going on? Can you share like the reality so that we can get a better idea of how to deal with this? Or I'm running a campaign and I want to know what the deal is out here." So like we've taken some people along with us to tour the streets and talk to people and get honest stories out of them because you're not going to get an honest story out of like the news or the mainstream whatever. So we have partnered up in that way. They're not gonna have me do their work for them, but you know, as far as like that's what the nonprofits are for. If you
Mm.
start doing too good of a job, then um, it's going to put them out of business. And I can't do everything, Sorry, I have like a fruit
No,
fly.
no.
Um,
That's all right. That's perfectly
but
fine. I
I've
have a runny
given them,
nose. I mean, we're well matched tonight.
I don't get sick.
I love
Maybe-
you, but I hate you right now. Just
I
understand that.
didn't get COVID. My
I
husband
didn't
had it.
either. I
Yeah.
didn't either. Well, let me rephrase that. No one ever diagnosed me with COVID. Now, there was a stretch maybe around 2021 where I got sick as a dog. It put me down for like 3 or 4 days.
Hmm.
And after that, I would get sick. I'd get tested for COVID. Nope, never had it. And I keep thinking to myself, I just wonder if that stretch I had about 4 years ago was really it. I just didn't realize it.
Could be.
Just could be. Got a couple other photographs, and then I want to ask a couple last questions. Here's a young man who, if you've got a story to tell on him, I'd like to hear it because this is apparently him telling the drug. I think you say it best here. A young man's gesture to the drug that's consuming him. Fentanyl is a vampire. I feel like I'm being stabbed by needles. Any more backstory on this than what you've got in the post?
Not a lot other than some friends of his had reached out to me because they saw his picture, which happens pretty often. I get messages from family members or friends saying that's, my brother or my friend. Please tell him that we care about him and whatnot. So, no, that's Raven. I'm assuming that's not his real name, but he was just fiending on the streets. And Kevin and I stopped and talked to him and just asked him to describe what it was that was going on with him. So, he went on a huge rant. It's like, this thing's going to kill me. I feel like I'm being stabbed by 1,000 knives. It's sucking the life out of me. I'm going to die. I want to die. And then he asked me for a hug and he was very sweaty and I gave him a hug and then he ran off to try to find some fentanyl.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen him since.
How often do you get contacted by family members or really, really, really good friends of these folks that you're meeting on the streets of Portland?
Weekly.
What?
Yeah.
Are these folks at a point where they're just like, I don't know what to do. I've tried everything. I want to bring this person, I want to bring them back away from this madness that's consumed them, and I don't know what. I mean, do people share those kind of frustrations with you?
They do. Or could you just let this person know that we still love him? Or here's $20. Can you bring like a meal?
Wow.
Because not all of them are around here. Like there's one
Sure.
family that lives in Georgia that asked me to reach out to their son and brother. It was multiple family members, and just tell him that we love him and we want him to come back home. And
Wow.
in some cases, I've actually found people's family members for them because they weren't capable of doing it themselves, with some sleuthing and all that. And I don't know. My life is so weird. I'm like, I was just some mom, and now I'm like an investigation hub, and I don't know what I'm doing.
Now here's one that I said it backstage, and I'll say it here. I love your photography work, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up your pant leg saying that. You have a really fantastic eye for a photographer. You really do, and God bless you, because your photography work and the reasons behind it are just, to me, that makes the work even better. And this is a black and white, and this is just, gosh, this is just so good. Really, it is. Let me see what the caption is you have on this one. Hang on.
That's actually a good story.
Okay, let's hear it.
That's one of the heartwarming stories. Most of them are not heartwarming, but that young man, his name is Gabriel, and Kevin and I had just decided that we felt like we should go out on one morning and hang out in Chinatown, which was kind of spur of the moment, but it was like we were waiting for a good moment or a good story to come into our hands. And so we're like, well, we'll just go out there. And within 5 minutes, that kid who was really distressed came up to us and said he needed help. And so we stopped and listened to him. And he was freshly homeless because he had basically run away from home a year ago and had been living with friends, trying to live a particular kind of life, and decided that he made a huge mistake. And he was now homeless. He was terrified. He's obviously very young and like a cute kid and just very naive. And he needed somebody to help him. And so he was trying to get to a shelter that was nearby. The shelters here are a shit show. Like, you're going to get hooked on hard drugs. You're going to get raped. You're going to get trafficked. Like, something bad's going to happen to you going into that, right? And so we ended up getting the phone number for his foster mom, who lives about an hour away, and talked to her and let her know the full situation. And she wanted to put him on a Greyhound bus to get back home. So we took him to the Greyhound station, but he didn't have ID. And he was a little panicky and just wanting to get back home. And so we decided, you know what, let's just get in the car. We're going to drive you home. So we got Gabriel and jumped in the car and drove him back home to his family and hooked up with his foster mom. And she was crying and they were hugging. And so he is back home. He's safe now. And he could have got completely sucked into the streets and just consumed like the kid in the previous photo, Raven, who he's just a dead man walking. For whatever reason, right place, right moment, the Holy Spirit, if you are into that, it worked out. So he knew who to ask for help, and he said, you just look safe. I feel like I can trust you. And then I found out, crazy enough, like I go to the same church as his family. So
wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
And
that's
he got
amazing.
a text from his mom saying, thank you so much. Like, he's in recovery. And
that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
An actual good story, which is pretty infrequent.
Well, let me ask you a question, and there's no good answer to this, because since we're on the subject of Christianity, you've probably heard at one time or another the verse from the Gospels where Jesus looks at his disciples and said, "The poor you shall always have with you," which a lot of people have used and abused that verse to either justify inaction or just callous ignorance of what is going on around them. Okay. But that said, this is a problem that affects Portland. It affects my hometown. It affects, Jessica Fensky is here. She's from Arvada, Colorado. We've got people here from Michigan and Ohio and all over the country. And in some cases, all over the world if they were here tonight. This affects everybody in every city, large and small. If you, having now talked to these people, walked among these people, etc., if you had any like 2 or 3 or 4 things, if it even takes that much, what do we as a society do to get a handle on trying to reach out to the people that you're meeting and to try to hopefully turn them around? And I will just give you my take. There is no government program that's going to solve this problem, because a lot of these issues, to me, you can disagree with me on this if you want, a lot of these issues are spiritual. A lot of these issues are emotional. And as you say, some of them are just mental health issues. But if we as a society are going to turn this around, large scale, small scale, or anywhere in between, depending on the size of where you live, what would you tell people? What do we need to do?
It's more of a root problem than an end of the road problem, I think. We need to tackle it from both directions, but the breakdown of the family and of society in general has led to this, because people feel either entitled and they end up in a situation like this, or they feel hopeless or purposeless, and they don't have a grounding in their families or their communities, and they just end up shipwrecked with kind of nothing underneath them. So we need our families back. We need for the education system to not be destroying everybody. And the drug problem really does need to get addressed. The things that we have in our country coming over the border are destructive. And I think fentanyl has some kind of mystical hold on people's spirits and their souls. And there's some kind of like portal to evil going on. Like, I don't know. We need to get that out. Like, we need that off of our streets and to go back to the quaint world of heroin and like weed. Like, that sounds terrible, but bring back heroin. Oh my gosh. Now with the people that are already in the state, you need to start assessing people for mental health issues.
Sure.
And getting those people the help that they need. Because once you get like the mental health people out of there, then you have the addicts, and you start trying to get them to admit that they've hit rock bottom. They accept help. And then you end up with just kind of like the chronically homeless or criminal people on the streets. It's like multiple layers. But I think that the top part of it, the mental health, we have to like get serious about assessing people for that, because schizophrenia, autism, PTSD, like there's a lot of that where people have some kind of PTSD and they just can't go indoors. Like, they don't want to be inside with people. And then what do you do with that? Like, they're not going to go into shelter. So
Oh, absolutely.
Mental health, addiction, and then criminality.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tara, this has been, I knew that this was going to be a really good conversation, and I cannot thank you enough for coming on here. Look, I'm going to give you the same thing that I give most, if not every guest that comes on the Electronic Front Porch. If as time goes by, you got something burning on the brain and you want a platform to talk about it, get in contact with me, because I want you to come back here. You are welcome here anytime you want. If
Awesome.
you've got something you need to talk about, or something you want to let people know about, or whatever, you get in contact with me and you let me know, because you are truly doing God's work. I'm not trying to use that phrase flippantly. Truly, you are. You are out there, meeting people where they are and trying to meet the needs in what ways you can. And it is truly, as you do unto the least of these, you have done unto me. And you are living that example. And that is an extraordinary thing to be a part of. There are moments it probably drives you crazy. There are moments it makes you go, what in the world am I doing? But you truly are doing some amazing work. And just know that and I think I can speak safely for this audience, we love you. We support your work. We'll pray for you. If there's things that we can do to help, which, by the way, I saw that you have a Cash App and a Venmo. If I saw that correctly, I've got that pinned in the description on Rumble and YouTube. So, folks, if there are ways you want, and I'm not saying you have to, but if there are ways you want to help, it's in the description of the video. Please consider doing it. And where can people find you on social media? I know you're on Twitter, obviously, but where else can people find you? What can they do to help you? And what can they do to support your work?
Well, until I get my ass in gear and make a website where I can sell prints, supporting my work is just if you want to give me a follow and share my posts and say something nice to counter the mean people that like to take a dump on me. I always appreciate that. So on Twitter, I'm tara-Faul 503, and you can give me a follow there. And then Ghost Portland on Instagram, where that's my less serious feed, I guess I would say, where I don't share my feelings as much. But and I just try to tell reality the way I see it. It's not really like a bunch of spin on what I have to say, but yeah. And if you do want to drop a donation, sometimes people say this is for something specific. And so I take note of that and make sure it goes to that thing. So,
okay. Now, if there is one piece of advice I would give you, I really wish you would learn to express yourself more, because there are just moments throughout this conversation I cannot figure out what you're thinking. I mean, if you just lay it on the line for people, for heaven's sake, I'm just kidding. All right, hang on a second. We'll say some proper goodbyes backstage, folks. Thank you so much for being here, for chatting on the porch. This, like I said, I've been wanting to get this young lady on here for the longest time, and given the season that we're going into and the issues that she's seeing and dealing with and addressing in where she lives, I thought this would be a fabulous discussion. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I will be tomorrow night on my good friend Tracy Barkley's channel, Gen X Marks the Spot. We'll be going over some items in the news. I believe that's 6 o'clock this evening, or tomorrow night, but I'll let you guys know. Anyway, thank you guys so much for being here. Please consider subscribing to my channel on YouTube and Rumble, and give me a follow on Twitter. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we love you very much. We will see you soon. And remember the words of that great American philosopher, Tom T. Hall, when he said, "It's faster horses, younger lovers, older whiskey, and more money." Love you guys. See you later.